In this video, I'll be showing you how to convert proprietary Topcon files to a file format that both SiteMetrix Grade and GradeMetrix will import. To start, I highlighted the files that I'll be exporting out to SiteMetrix Grade or GradeMetrix. For both line work and surface, I'll be exporting two separate DXF files. If you have any stakeout points that you want to import, you'll want to use a CSV format. And then for our localization, I'll also be using CSV, but notice at the bottom that point must contain the lat, long, and height along with the northing easting elevation. Here are the proprietary Topcon files. For control points, it'll be a GC3. For line work, it'll be an LN3. And for stakeout points, it'll be a PT3. And finally, surface will be a TN3. So instead of requesting all these individual files, what I would request is a TP3. A TP3 file will contain all of the 4 other files that you need, but it'll only contain it in one file, making it easier for you to convert. In the description below, I'll include a link for a software called Office 3D. This is a Topcon software that we use to convert the files. It's also a free-to-use software. Once you've downloaded and installed Office 3D, this will be the screen that you start out in. We will start by bringing in the TP3 file. To do this, you go File, Open, find where you stored the TP3 file, highlight it, and tell it to open. You'll now see all the associated line work, points, and surfaces for this particular project. To make it easy, I always start on the left side of the screen and work to the right. So we'll start under Project. This will be for my control points. So I'll click on Project, and I want to export control points, and I want to export them to a text file. You'll notice under Format, it is blank. We'll have to create a format to export out to SiteMetrix or GradeMetrix. To do this, we'll start off with a new format. I'll give it a name of point northeast elevation, lat, long, and height. The file extension, again, is CSV. And now I'll have to select the attributes for each one of these formats. So I'll start off by adding, and the first one is point name. We'll tell it OK. I'll add again. Then we want northing, and then easting, and elevation, point WGS84 latitude, point WGS84 longitude, and finally point WGS84 height, and tell it OK. So again, we want name, north, east, elevation, lat, long, and height. Once I have this, I'll tell it OK. Now it's saved, and you won't have to do this step again. I'll highlight the format and go Next. Now it's asking me where do I want to save these. I'm going to Browse. Then I'm going to put them on my thumb drive. You can change the name if you want. And finally, Finish. The next entity in our list that we have are points. If there's any stakeout points that you want to bring into GradeMetrix or SiteMetrix Grade, you'll do that here. If there are no points that you need to stake out to, skip this step and go to line work. To start, highlight the entire project. By left-clicking and holding in the upper left, drag a box all the way to the lower right. Now go to Points, Export Selected Points. We want to go to a text file. You can see the format we created previous. This time we don't want the lat, long, and height. We just want point northeast and elevation. So we'll create a new format, and I'll call it point northeast elevation. And I'll give it an extension of CSV and add. So the first is point name. Next is northing, followed by easting, and finally elevation. I'll tell it OK. And again, once you have this selected and created, you won't have to do this again. But since I want point northeast and elevation, I'll tell it Next. I'll browse to my thumb drive to save it and give it a name of stakeout points. And finally save and finish. The next entity would be line work. If I drop down line work, I'll go to Export Selected Line Work to AutoCAD File. I'll browse to my thumb drive where I want to save it and give it a name. By default, it's going to select DWG. You can either use a DWG or a DXF. It really doesn't matter. I'll tell it to save. And the final entity that we need to export is the surface. We go to 10, go to 10 surfaces. And if there's multiple different surfaces, you'll have to pick or highlight the one that you want to use and tell it OK. Even if there's only one surface like here, we still have to highlight it and tell it OK. Once I have it highlighted, it's selected that surface. I go to 10, export current 10 surface to AutoCAD file. Again, I'm going to pick my thumb drive where I want it stored or save it and give it a name. Again, DWG is the default. You can use DWG or DXF, it doesn't matter. And now I'll save it. The last thing I want to do before exiting out of Office 3D to go into GradeMetrix or SiteMetrix is to go into Project and look at the control points. You'll notice in the control points, we have one horizontal that is kicked out. Once we bring in our CSV file for our localization, we'll also have to turn off this horizontal. So either take a picture of it or a screenshot. I'll take a screenshot and save it to that folder so we have it for later. And now we can exit out of 3D Office and create a job in either SiteMetrix Grade or GradeMetrix. Once you're in SiteMetrix Grade or GradeMetrix, insert the thumb drive into the Iron 1, Iron 2, or HT20. Then we go Menu and New Job. By default, New Job will be grayed out. You have to be in admin mode to create one. To do this, hit the little guy in the lower left and check on admin mode. Now New Job should be colored in and selectable. I'll click New Job, give it a name, and go Next. Since the localization file is a CSV file, we can't import it in here. We'll have to import it later. We don't have a geoid separation or horizontal shift, so I'll just import the line work. I'll pick my thumb drive and pick the line work file that I created. We'll go Next. I'll add the surface, again, from my thumb drive and pick the surface file that we created. I'll go Next. Make sure your units of record is correct and go Next. For our localization, we want to import the CSV that we created. So I'll go to Import CSV. I'll pick the thumb drive. And we have two CSV files, one I created for control and one I created for stakeout. So this would be the one I created using the point northeast, lat, long, and height, what I named control. I'll tell it to open. And now we only display the name, northeast, and elevation. You don't see the lat, long, and height. If you see the same thing, go to CSV format and change this from name northeast to name northeast, lat, long, and height. Now you'll see the lat, long, and height attributes. You'll want to leave the LLH format as degrees, minutes, seconds, and you'll want to change the geodetic height format to the units of record that you selected before. So in this instance, it'll be US survey feet. I'll now tell it OK. Now I'll display the residuals for this specific localization. If you remember, I created a screenshot because one of these points, the horizontal was kicked out. So if we open that screenshot, you'll notice on point 2, they had the horizontal turned off. So to do this, just highlight number 2, tell it to edit, and in Use in Solution, we only want to use the vertical. And OK. Now if we look at that screenshot again, our residuals should match. So on point 1, we have an 1/1800 vertical or horizontal, 500 vertical. So just double check that these match, and as long as they match, you know the localizations are going to be the same. So finally, I can tell it to finish. Once you have the base set up on a known point and receiving corrections, you'll see yourself on the screen with the line work and the surface associated. If you also want to bring in stakeout points, that's done in Menu, Manage Points. We want to import a CSV. Again, I'm going to pick my thumb drive and pick the stakeout points that I exported earlier and tell it to open. You'll see a listing of all the stakeout points and tell it OK, and OK again. Now I can actually stake to these points that I have. And that's all you need to know to convert Topcon files for GradeMetrix or SiteMetrix Grade. Again, in the description below, you'll find a link for both the software and the file formats that we accept. Thank you.